Hilary, 1 year ago, relentless rain hitting the valley. The storm brought the desert to a standstill, the floodwaters raging through the center of the valley.
For many, a time of uncertainty, but for others, it was a time to come together and offer hope. Neighbors helping neighbors.
Of looking at my community destroyed, like a hurricane had came, but emotions of happiness to see all the community come out and help.
Emergency workers saving lives, the desert community finding light in some of our darkest moments.
Heroes of Hilary.
Stop, stay right there. Stay right there, okay?
Never seen before footage, and now a chance to thank those who went above and beyond.
Another alarming concern, our air quality. Now News Channel 3 is getting answers and working to ensure the air you breathe is safe. Hilary, 1 year later, a News Channel 3 special starts right now.
Hello, I'm Karen Devine.
And I'm John White, and we're here in the Panorama Park area of Cathedral City, a neighborhood that took the brunt of the storm. Taking a look at Sky 3, today Panorama Park looks like a typical valley community. 1 year ago, it was a very different scene. Neighborhoods clogged by muddy floodwaters, many homes heavily damaged as the storm continued its assault.
Residents here are coping after months of cleanup. I went back into the neighborhood and found that residents are still frustrated with the city and asking questions.
So the water, the mud was about this high, ravishing through the backyard for hours till about 6 a.m. in the morning.
Cathedral City homeowner John Trad showing me how the water and mud rushed into his yard, completely destroying it.
I was woken up at 12:15.
Video from inside the house shows the terrifying moments the flooding began. His family moving upstairs away from danger.
And here's about 15 minutes later to show you the devastation of how much mud came in.
And that was just the beginning. As the sun came up, the reality of what was lost came to light. As a collector of cars, his cherished vehicles, some trapped in mud and floodwaters, damaging them both inside and out.
All my cars, the ones that were most affected was out in front.
Yeah, right. And you had 7 vehicles?
3 outside, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And your motorcycle?
And my motorcycle. Had to completely take it apart and redo it.
Total loss, nearly $400,000. And a year later, Trad is still looking for answers from the city.
I'd like to know how they can prevent this from happening again, and why didn't they respond in an adequate fashion? Why did they wait 2 days to respond to us?
I took his questions directly to Cathedral City's Fire Chief Michael Contreras, who told me he understands the frustrations felt by Trad and others, but there were some life and death emergencies they had to attend to first.
We immediately had 7 cars that were trapped on Dade Palm. Some people may not know we had a train derailment, a board and care home that had 14 residents trapped in the board and care. And that really became our focus.
Do you feel like you did everything you could to get to the people in the Panorama neighborhood on a timely manner?
I can tell you that we did everything we can and everything we could in that moment with the resources we had at that date and that time.
And as for mitigation plans for the future, Chief Contreras says,
we're in that next phase of preparing our people. So while they were very well trained, our city council, our city manager has added the resources to even do more training.
Despite the year of mental, physical, and financial frustrations, Trad says one good thing came out of it.
Got to meet neighbors that I never knew before, and we became like a family, and just a lot of support. That was really probably the best thing out of the whole transition that acquired with us.
Another hard-hit community just down valley from here, Spanish Walk in Palm Desert. Homes were heavily damaged by flooding. In some cases, crews had to use rafts to bring people to safety. People there saying it was painful to see fellow residents, mostly retirees, suffering.
And 1 year ago, we learned our 911 lifeline is vulnerable. Valley-wide lines were down except for sheriffs and CHP. Local agencies blamed outages on phone service providers. Cathedral City Police telling News Channel 3 the outage was traced to a failed fiber optic cable near the railroad tracks in Gene Autry Trail in Palm Springs, where a freight train derailed in floodwaters during the storm.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
The water is up to the waist already, and we have patients there.
The only thing holding me back from washing away is a billboard sign.
Many were left without food and water and other basic needs. By November, nearly 270 households and over 1,100 people were helped in the Panorama neighborhood. Fine Food Bank reported more than 14,000 pounds of food distributed.
It's very important to help our neighbors. We were not prepared for something like this.
KESQ was proud to partner with Fine Food Bank to bring awareness. During the response, Fine Food Bank hosted an emergency mobile market to provide residents with food and clean water. The Coachella Valley will be dealing with the aftermath of Tropical Storm Hilary for a long time.
Yeah, Karen, all that water and mud flow, especially here along the I-10 corridor, causing so much damage. After all, it was a 1,000-year storm in one small part of the San Bernardino Mountains. Happened to be right at the head of Mission Creek that flows into the Coachella Valley. Now, that water proved to be too much for the infrastructure, also proving that not much is stronger than the power of water.
Some places with some really tall vertical cut banks.
1 month after Hilary, we visited the Pearson Boulevard Bridge in Desert Hot Springs, where floodwaters nearly wiped out one of the footings. Last week, we returned.
The city had to come in and have a structural engineer take a look at this. The structural engineer determined that the bridge could be repaired and maintained its integrity.
Jason Yulee is the general manager of the Riverside County Flood Control District. Hilary was a game changer.
When the flood came through, it deepened and widened this a little bit, and although there was a lot of damage that came from Tropical Storm Hilary, we're also trying to take advantage of where it did leave us with some benefits.
The creek still flows in the dead of summer. Just upstream, Indian Canyon looked like this after the storm, totally wiped out. Flood control worked with the city on the plan to rebuild the crossing.
In the process of doing that, they said, hey, Jason, you know, we've got a little more capacity in the stream. Can we take advantage of that to put in some slightly bigger culverts so that this road flows less often?
This crossing is considered an interim structure, one that could remain in place, however, for decades, because flood control is a very slow, long-term planning process. This area, part of a 50-year plan.
Eventually, there's going to be a fully engineered channel and maybe even a bridge here.
Hilary wiped out crossings at Dillon and Little Morongo before closing down I-10, causing a train derailment and heading down valley toward the hardest hit area in Cathedral City. A floodplain map ended up being very accurate down to the street on where the flooding hit. Phase 1 of a project to help could start as soon as next year.
There is progress on the North Cathedral City stormwater project.
Lorraine Garcia is the communication manager for Coachella Valley Water District.
There would be a stormwater channel that would be built north of the 10, and it would go underneath the I-10, underneath the Union Pacific Railroad, and then ultimately it would go south to put the water into the Coachella Valley Whitewater River Stormwater Channel.
The first phase will cost around $10 million. The project would also help protect areas of Thousand Palms, like the Tri Palms Estates, that were also slammed with flooding. While those communities faced terrible flooding, a number of flood control projects worked in the valley, saving thousands of homes. This is video from 2017, floodwaters raging through a mobile home park at the south end of Palm Springs. Last year, the Flood Control District was in the process of completing a new storm drain to protect that community. This is what it looked like on the day before Hilary. It wasn't quite done, but they were still able to use it to protect hundreds of homes.
We were able to get it done just in time so that we could open that inlet the day before Tropical Storm Hilary. And that having that inlet opened helped prevent a repeat of what happened in 2017 where this whole area flooded.
Millions of dollars in infrastructure, all designed to protect lives and property from the power of water.
The aftermath of Hilary, and one of the biggest questions, right, John, is why did the Coachella Valley see some of the biggest impacts from Hilary as compared to the rest of the state?
Well, we have just the people to answer that. First Alert meteorologists Haley Clausen and Patrick Evans explain how the conditions were just perfect for this storm to wreak havoc across our valley.
Hurricanes are not a frequent part of our forecast here in the desert. Ocean temperatures in Southern California are not favorable for tropical systems as the North Pacific gyre brings colder water from Alaska down the west coast.
Now, for development to occur, the ocean water needs to be at 79 degrees or warmer. The average temperature during hurricane season at Scripps Pier in La Jolla is in the 60s. As a result of the cooler water, any system that moves north towards San Diego County loses energy and it fizzles out.
But the water is warming. Here's a visualization of sea surface temperature change at Scripps Pier in La Jolla from 1916 to 2023. And you can really see the distinct change from 2014 through recent years.
Really significant in those recent years. And with that in mind, look at the daily sea surface temperatures so far this year compared to the average. And note, the little blue dots are the actual, driving up that average as we move through the year.
Now let's take you back in time about 48 hours from Hilary, making its impact known here in the Coachella Valley. Once a Category 4 hurricane, by Saturday morning, Hilary dropped to a Category 3 storm with maximum sustained winds of 125 miles per hour. Sunday morning, it had weakened to a tropical storm shortly before making landfall over the northern Baja California peninsula. At this point, the Coachella Valley had already received more than 0.3 of an inch of rain, but the bulk of it is what fell Sunday afternoon.
By the end, more than 3.5 inches of rain had fallen across parts of the desert. Here are some rainfall totals. I've broken them down by three distinct areas. The valley, and as you can see, heavy rain in Whitewater contributed to water flowing down toward the 10 freeway. But valley floor totals were impressive as well. Palm Desert picked up a hefty 3.82 inches of rain over the storm period, and other valley cities followed suit. In the mountains of San Bernardino County, totals were alarming. Lytle Creek clocking in with nearly 10 inches of rain and over 5 in Morongo Valley, which also contributed to the flooding locally as that water produced enormous runoff into the Whitewater Channel. Here in Riverside County in the mountains, we witnessed nearly 12 inches of rain on Mount San Jacinto, and Snow Creek picked up nearly 8 inches of rain, with Upper Tockwitz Creek recording over 6 inches.
Now, compared to the rest of Southern California, the mountains and desert communities felt Hilary the most. And there are two reasons for that: our terrain and hurricane anatomy.
Now, the strongest part of any hurricane is the right side. Steering currents plus the wind within the system itself combine to create a greater force. It's this side of the storm that typically generates a greater storm surge and where tornadoes are more likely to form.
As the counterclockwise bands moved across eastern Riverside and San Bernardino counties, they were forced to drop just the immense amount of moisture it had when encountering the 10,000 plus elevation of San Gorgonio and Mount San Jacinto. And you can really see the difference the mountain range created from the east to the west when you're looking at some of those rainfall totals.
Of course, the desert doesn't handle rainfall very well, in part due to our hydrophobic soil.
And just in a minute, First Alert meteorologist Spencer Blum will be going into more detail about runoff and the sheer volume of water that flowed through the Coachella Valley as a result.
Some major roads here in the valley were damaged or destroyed by all that water and mud. Indian Canyon in Palm Springs going out to the freeway was closed for 6 weeks. It's a crucial artery into Palm Springs, helping to connect Desert Hot Springs with Desert Regional Medical Center, which is the area's only Level 1 trauma center. In October, crews opened 2 newly constructed temporary lanes, creating some relief for drivers. Indian Canyon improvement projects are now in the works, with funding now secured for longer-term fixes in hopes of keeping the road open more often during weather events, including both flooding and blowing dust and sand.
From the roads to the washes, it's hard to forget all the water rushing through. And our washes were the first line of defense. First meteorologist Spencer Blum is your weather insider.
I am standing in the Whitewater Wash in Indio. Now, most of the time, it looks just like this: dry, empty, and mostly barren. However, during intense and sudden rain events like what we saw with Tropical Storm Hilary, this whole wash floods with millions upon millions of gallons of rushing water. There are a number of different soils here in the Coachella Valley, but exactly none of them are well suited to handle large, sudden increases in rain. So that means that areas here in the Coachella Valley can flood very easily, which means that our washes serve as our first line of defense against those floodwaters. The rain we received during Hilary certainly caused localized flooding after soaking our soils, but a large amount of water flowed into the valley in the form of runoff from the local mountains, where more than 11 inches of rain fell down in some spots.
So all that rain, a good portion of it, fell right down those steep slopes of the east side of San Jacinto Mountains into Palm Springs, and it was carried around by the various tributaries that flow into the Whitewater rivers.
1 year ago today, floodwaters like this from all over the Coachella Valley flowed into the wash and eventually out toward the Salton Sea. At its peak, 24,500 cubic feet of water were rushing through the wash per second. That's enough to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool in just over 4 seconds.
If you take a cubic foot, which is a measurement a foot high, a foot wide, and a foot deep, you can put a basketball inside that dimension. So if you imagine 30,000 basketballs every second coming past any particular place on the Whitewater River as it runs through Palm Springs, you get an idea kind of what the intensity is like.
At one point, the water flowing through this wash was over 10 feet high. That's almost 2 of me stacked vertically. Reporting in Indio, Spencer Blum with News Channel 3.
What many weren't expecting and what continues to cause concern is all that dust in the air. And as you can see from Sky 3, windy days bring dust across the valley, impacting activities and creating dangerous situations on our roads.
We started taking a hard look at this problem back in January. In our I-Team report, Hazardous Haze, the big question at the time was, would these dusty days continue or would things begin to slowly return to normal?
Well, as News Channel 3's Jeff Stahl reports, it has continued to be a problem, especially during the windiest days.
Right now, local leaders say that they are trying to find some long-term dust storm solutions.
This valley was choked with an air quality problem. It was very different than past years.
I met with the Coachella Valley Association of Governments' Tom Kirk, who is heading efforts to improve our air quality concerns. He says just about everyone in the Coachella Valley now agrees our air has gotten worse post-tropical storm Hilary.
We all agree the air district doesn't.
More than 50 local leaders signed this June letter to the South Coast Air Quality Management District, asking it to better identify all the sources of dust in our air and then to create a plan quickly to address it.
They might be looking at things one way, but trust me, our eyes and lungs are seeing it very differently.
This is Mission Creek. It comes in under the freeway.
As John White's The Power of Water I-Team investigation revealed last September, the August storm carried huge amounts of mud into the Whitewater Wash, a lot of it settling in the wash between Indian and Gene Autry Trail. It's one of the windiest areas in the world. Some have suggested building a man-made channel 13 miles through the Whitewater Wash from Whitewater Canyon to Ramon to prevent mud flows from spreading out and creating dust fields.
We can control it and lead it away from that windy area.
Kirk says that would not have helped during Hilary.
All this mud is from the north, crossing the freeway from Mission Creek and deposited in this area between Indian and Palm Drive, Gene Autry.
Kirk says AQMD has expanded its network of air quality monitors around the desert, but
they've got probably 500 folks that focus on air quality every day. We don't have any in the Coachella Valley.
Riverside County 4th District Supervisor Manuel Perez is our local AQMD rep and sits on its board.
And now, though, this issue is larger than just AQMD. I need people to understand this.
Perez says this isn't a PM10 or PM2.5 problem anymore, but a new unexamined concern. Dust in our air all the time, suspended, creating a haze, even when it's not windy. This, he says, will require both state and federal studies and aid because we've never tested for total suspended particulate matter in our air.
It could be PM15, it could be PM20. We don't know that yet. And so what that's going to require is efforts from folks at a federal level as well as at a state level to help identify what is that.
AQMD also replied in a statement saying it's evaluating satellite data in collaboration with experts in academia to understand what community members are observing. We are also reaching out to state and federal agencies that have expertise in desert environments to assist in identifying potential solutions. See their full statement at KESQ.com. Meanwhile, CVAG is now working with Caltrans and other agencies to reassess and reapply ground cover to expose dusty areas ahead of our fall winds. But covering wash areas poses jurisdictional issues and environmental concerns. Kirk says they're still working through those, but is optimistic they will be addressed. In Palm Springs, Jeff Stahl, News Channel 3.
So what are we breathing, and will the air quality ever return to what we consider normal?
Well, First Alert Chief Meteorologist Haley Clausen digging deeper for answers on this, and what she found may surprise you.
I'm here in Palm Springs. Sand and dust. We see it, we feel it, but how much of it are we actually breathing in? That's where my work began.
And what we're concerned with as an air quality agency is the size of dust that we breathe in that's inhalable, that goes into our lungs and causes all kinds of bad health effects.
That's particulate matter that's smaller than 10 microns in diameter. The main takeaway? It doesn't matter what makes up the dust. If it's smaller than PM10, it's not healthy for us.
Our analysis so far of PM10 levels, we found higher levels in the month or so after Hilary, but levels that we've seen since then have sort of been pretty typical as compared to levels that we've seen in past years.
So what is it you're seeing in the air?
It is possible that the increased dust that people are seeing are larger particles that are larger than these PM10 particles, which don't have federal health standards because they're not inhalable. We have done some additional monitoring of those larger particles, and it does look like on days with high levels of dust, a lot of that dust are those larger particles.
I took these concerns to a local pulmonologist to ask if there's been an increase in patients with respiratory issues.
You know, I do primarily see a lot of chronic cough patients, and a lot of these patients do have either chronic bronchitis or asthma, triggers in the environment, with dust storms being one of them, have the tendency to, exacerbate their chronic disease.
He said the only definitive way to answer the increase in patients and the cause is through an epidemiological study. South Coast Air Quality Management District says they're committed to learning more. In the beginning of 2025, the 6th version of MATES will begin, which focuses on the carcinogenic risk from exposure to air toxics. And for the first time, the Coachella Valley will be included in the year-long study. One thing is for sure, the desert we all love is changing, but I will continue to track our air quality and work to get answers. In Palm Springs, Haley Clausen, News Channel 3.
1 year later now, we're learning more stories about the heroes of Hilary, the people who sprang into action when so many lives were in danger.
Yeah, and for the first time, we're seeing exclusive, never-before-seen video of those first responders in the Cathedral City neighborhood.
News Channel 3's Peter Dow was able to speak to 3 men about their harrowing experiences they say they will never forget.
Stop! 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 Stay right there! Stay right there, okay?
A terrifying scene as fast-moving mud and water from Tropical Storm Hilary suddenly swept through Cathedral City in the pre-dawn darkness.
You have to stay right there. They'll come over and help us, okay?
Police officer Alex Wynn's patrol car had been overtaken by mud on Date Palm Drive, careening him into a light pole, unable to open the doors.
Miss, no. Don't go into the wall. No, stop. I promise you, stop.
In this never-before-seen body cam video, you can see he climbed out of the car through the passenger window and onto the hood, desperate to warn a woman who was getting dangerously close to the raging mud flow.
No, go back this way. Go back this.
I thought she was going to get washed away for a moment, and she was on all fours, just there yelling and screaming. So I went over and I just grabbed her to keep her from going any further into the stream.
Cross Date Palm.
The moment he finally reaches the sobbing woman, he tries to calm her.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Officer Wynn stayed with her until swiftwater rescue crews arrived to take her to safety.
You may have saved her life. I think it was just the right place at the right time.
Someone else who was at the right place at the right time, Vertec mechanic Jesus Martinez, who used his loader to rescue about a dozen residents of a senior living facility on Horizon Road who had been trapped by the mud. What must have been going through your mind?
Obviously, you don't want to hurt someone with the loader. I mean, those things are pretty big, so it's a little nervous, but it's pretty good. I mean, we got everyone out, so that's nice.
Martinez carefully moved the residents roughly a quarter mile with the loader, since it was the only way to carry them through the deep mud. Luckily, everyone was okay. What is it like being back here 1 year later?
Well, it's different, you know. I mean, you see earth, and obviously earth is picked up now. It's clean.
And one of the reasons that street is clean is thanks to volunteers like Gus Ariza. Does this house bring back any memories?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the place was filled with mud.
Who spent nearly 4 weeks with international nonprofit Team Rubicon, clearing out homes full of mud and damaged furniture.
It was just unbelievable, just how devastated a lot of the homeowners were here. And then even hearing some of the stories, like how quickly this water and mud flowed through the houses.
Ariza is a lieutenant with the Palm Springs Police Department and had just joined Team Rubicon as a volunteer when Hilary hit.
I thought it was something that retirees did, and when I realized there was a lot of volunteers that had full-time jobs and were doing this, you know, my wife and I both said we need to join and we need to do something to help out, not knowing it's going to be in our own backyard.
3 men, 3 different perspectives on the storm that devastated Cathedral City. 1 year later, none of them consider themselves heroes. But I asked each of them how the experience has changed their lives.
I think it definitely gave me a perspective of how people can come together through times of need to help each other out and try to make each other's situation a little bit better.
It's just cool being able to help someone out, and if given the chance to do it again, you know, I'll jump on it. You know, there's no problem, you know, helping someone out.
To me, it was super inspiring. I think as a society or just being a human being, that's what we're here to do, is serve our fellow man when they're in need.
Peter Dowd, News Channel 3.
Thank you for watching this special edition of News Channel 3 Hilary Aftermath 1 year later.
Our coverage doesn't end here. You can head over to our website, kesq.com, where you can find an interactive timeline that tracks Hilary's destructive path and the desert cleanup that followed. Plus, get a look at other communities greatly impacted by Hilary. We hope you enjoyed this special half hour with us.
And stay with News Channel 3 as we continue to ask the tough questions about issues like air quality and hold area officials accountable to make sure the Coachella Valley is a safe place to live.
A big thank you to Paul Davis Restoration Experts for bringing this special to you commercial-free. News Channel 3 is now available on any of these streaming services. Watch live and on demand.